Hello friends, two people are building a two-story house from scratch in the middle of the forest with their own hands. Snow is knee-deep, the air is freezing, but there is no stopping. You will see how they started, step by step, and what they struggled with in this video. Let's see how this crazy construction turned out. In the first phase, after determining the exact location where the house will be built, they begin by cutting down the trees. As you can see, the fallen trees are stripped of their branches and cut down to a transportable size. This not only frees up space for construction, but also prepares the felled trees for future use as supporting elements of the house.
This is where the transformation truly begins. Thick logs are being placed one by one, and the house's supporting foundation is gradually rising. Every connection they make is strong enough to support the future walls and second floor.
The platform on which the structure will sit is being prepared so solidly that it can support anything you throw at it. Reaching this level is truly a major undertaking, as a concrete structure is now rising in the middle of the forest, and the best part is, every detail is clearly evolving, and watching it is heartwarming. If you think logs are simply cut and placed, take a look here. Each piece is cut with precise measurements. The ends are shaped at specific angles and then fitted together with absolute precision. Creating such a smooth floor frame is no easy feat, but the work done here is a true lesson. All the logs are laid perfectly parallel, the support gaps are perfect, and the load-bearing structure conveys a direct sense of solidity. And now comes the floor covering. The boards are installed one by one, and any irregularities are immediately cut and adjusted. What you are seeing now is the threshold where the house truly begins to rise. Friends, we are at a truly critical juncture right now. As you can see, not only the floor but also the walls are starting to rise. First, they are erecting the door frame to people align it together, then they secure it with cross bracing. It is crucial that this frame is perfectly vertical, as the entire structure will be shaped by it. Immediately afterward, they screw in the bottom, locking everything in place. And while that is happening, the other side is not sitting idle. Round logs are being added one on top of the other, inch by inch, as the walls rise. They are gaining height, and they are starting to feel like a real room. So, just a moment ago, there was just a bare floor. Now, a clear structure is rising before our eyes. This is the stage that truly makes a house a home. The walls have reached a certain height, and now the window openings are being prepared. Logs are being carefully stacked, checking alignment. Meanwhile, as the work area has increased, a temporary wooden staircase has been erected outside. The crew continues to move the upper sections while simultaneously working on securing the openings around the windows. Construction of the exterior side wall has begun, and the logs for the second section are being brought in one by one. As the upper sections are progressed, the locations of the roof supporting sections are being determined, and preparations are being made for the top level of the structure. Everything is progressing step by step, and the structure is now starting to rise. Once the main body of the house is complete, it is time to install the roof. First, the sloping roof frame, constructed from thick logs, is prepared. This frame serves both as the support for the superstructure and as the foundation for the roof cover. Then, the large wooden boards are carried up one by one and carefully secured to the roof flap. One is nailed from above, the other supports from below. Then, waterproofing begins. The blue sheet is stretched, carefully secured at the edges, and the entire roof is temporarily protected. While all this is underway, construction of the upper floor walls begins inside. Posts suitable for the sloping roof structure are placed along the upper lines, and later, this area will be completely enclosed, transforming it into an attic. The most challenging and demanding part of the structure is taking shape right now. outside, it may seem like a simple frame, but from the inside, this scene reveals the birth of a true home. The windows are like doors opening onto both light and nature. The sound of hammering breaks through the silence of the forest, ensuring every board is perfectly aligned. Next, the top cap of the chimney system is carefully installed. This step is one of the most important signs that the house's heating system is complete. This cap, perfectly aligned with the previously installed pipes, ensures that smoke from the interior is safely vented through the roof. Throughout the entire construction, every detail is carefully planned, and the metal surface is secured to ensure a perfect fit, compatible with the roof's waterproofing. The wooden structure has now risen, but the next stages are just as critical as the foundation. What truly makes a house a home is not just the walls or the roof, it is the meticulous and painstaking work that begins inside. This is the stage where the structure is made livable. Numerous meticulous craftsmanship takes place, including the arrangement of interior details, cladding, insulation, defining transitions between rooms, and installing door and window systems. Everything is done to transform it from a simple shell into a warm home. Every nail, every cut, creates the character of this house. The most remarkable aspect is that these stages are still completed without any heavy machinery or professional crew, entirely through the knowledge, patience, and craftsmanship of the architects. Here, nestled in the heart of nature, is a modern yet warm wooden house, crafted entirely by hand. This is not just a house, it is the epitome of determination, passion, and dream. If you have watched this incredible transformation with admiration, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and let us know what you think of this legendary home in the comments. See you in our new projects.